Hi, this is Michael with BackToTheFutureTrading.com, and this is another episode of NinjaTrader. What's called Unplugged. So I've been getting a lot of questions about the Oscillator alert tool, and a lot of people have been using it, and I've been seeing some really good success stories initially, especially with new traders. But there's some questions regarding the initial setup that I want to clarify here, and when we're done, we'll have a trading setup that you can replicate at home. We'll do it step by step, like a cooking show, without the Martha Stewart or Julia Child impersonations. So let me come in here, and I'm just going to take away all of the indicators on the chart. We'll start with a blank chart. And here I've chosen CL on a 5-minute chart, but you can use any market, any time frame that you want to use as the basis for what we're about to do. First thing I want you to do is download and install one of the free indicators from our Dropbox. It's called the EMA Slope Color tool. So just by double clicking on it, you'll add it to your indicator list, and the changes that I've made to the default values involve changing it to a 120 period SMA. There's no, EMA rather. It's not magical, it's just a good all-around workhorse value. You may have success with other numbers, including 150 or 89, depending on the markets and the volatility of those markets. I've gone down here and I've changed the color for the upslope to lime green, the color for the downslope to red. I've changed the plot style to a dot, and I've made it a value of 3 wide. Okay, so if we hit OK, you'll see that's where that indicator comes from. Double clicking on the EMA allows you to get in here. If you want to drop that value so you can see the dots better, simply make it smaller from 3 to the number 2. Now here's where it starts to take a slightly more complicated turn. The oscillator alert indicator lets us apply entry indicators to any one of the oscillators available in the NinjaTrader platform. And one of the ones that I'm really particularly fond of is the Fisher transform. It's sort of one of the unsung heroes of the free indicators that come with your NinjaTrader platform. So go ahead and double click on that, and you'll see out the gate default value is a 10 period indication here in the parameter area. And then underneath where it says plots, it's just a bar plot style with a width of number 2. If you want to make it sexier, you can beef up the size of the bar a little bit. You can also come in here and choose some kind of psychedelic color. I find when you're using indicators, anything that is in the blue to light blue family actually has a very calming effect when you're trading. So if you put that on there, boom, that's what you get. And that's the Fisher transform. It's an indicator that is really good at helping discover turns in the market. And you can see that when it turns, we're usually on the high or the low of the move, which is a great place to minimize your risk and take test trades looking for good ROIs on your investment. So 2 or 3 times your risk in reward. So what we want to try to do is we want to get the oscillator alert indicator to help us plot an arrow when these things happen. We want to look for any place in here where these little turns are occurring and not have to, in the market, in the moment, decide where those bars are. So let me show you how we can do that. All right, let's go into the oscillator alert indicator. Once you download it and install it from our Unplugged Dropbox, you'll see it in your indicator list. And once we add it, here's where things get fun. Okay, so first thing I want you to do is whatever bar type you're using a 5-minute bar here, I want you to come down to where it says data feed config, and the base data type has to match whatever bar type you're using. So if you're using a range bar or a tick bar or whatever one of these choices are in here, that needs to be matching what you're using. So we have a minute bar, and we have a 5-minute bar. So now these two parameters match the bar type that we're using on this chart. That's one of the first things you have to change. Now, we need to tell the indicator what kind of oscillator we want to reference. So this is a Fisher transform operator. Fisher transform indicator, forgive me. So when you go to the input series, just click on it. And now one of those clicks will automatically develop one of these little square boxes that's got some dots on the bottom of it. And that's sort of a continuation. We need to tell the indicator what oscillator we're going to reference. So when you do that, it says, hey, here's an input series choice. Expand the plus sign next to the indicator box and scroll down until you find our beloved Fisher transform. And so now here it is. It matches the period that we chose over here in the initial inclusion of the indicator in our indicator list. So when you click OK, watch what happens. That input series now has changed. It's no longer blank. And it's telling us I'm referencing a Fisher transform oscillator. Okay, so if you're using a CCI, that needs to say CCI. If you're using a MACD, this needs to say MACD. If you're using the ultimate oscillator, this needs to say ultimate oscillator. Whatever momentum indicator, RSI, stochastic you're choosing, you need to have that match up here in the input series. So these two first steps are really critical moving on. Now the rest is relatively simple. Let me show you what I mean by that. Your Fisher transform, let me hit OK on here. You'll see now that it's plotting on the bottom of the screen. I'm going to go ahead and pull these up. There's our oscillator alert indicator, and here's our Fisher transform indicator. And we're starting to get arrows of indication on the chart where these reversals are taking place. Now, one of the things you're going to start to notice is this. The center line here is at 0. So what is the midline of the oscillator? It's 0. So I want you to come in here, go to your oscillator alert indicator, and now down below where it says lines, you have overbought, oversold, and midline. Change the value of the midline to 0. With me so far? So the midline of the oscillator is 0, and you can see it's swinging back and forth here between, it looks like 2.5 at a maximum, and then -2, -2.5 at a minimum. So what we're going to do for overbought and oversold is change this from 80 to +1 and from 20 to -1. I want you to see what happens when we do that. Okay, so for the value of the midline, we want to make it 0. For the value of overbought, we want to make it 1. For the value of oversold, we want to make it -1. And now for the overbought and oversold settings, for overbought, we want it to be 1. And for oversold, we want it to be -1. Again, we're just kind of catching the highs and lows of most of the swings. Okay, now when we do that, look at this oscillator. Here's our Fisher transform, and we've told the computer the following. Overbought for me is right here, 1. Oversold for me is -1. So the further out you press those values from the center line, the fewer and fewer signals you're going to see. If you want to make it more and more and more inclusive, you make those values for overbought and oversold smaller and smaller. Make sense? So now, if we pull this back, we don't need the Fisher transform indicator on here anymore. We can actually just take it off because the new indicator is below, but we're seeing where all these turns are taking place. So let's consider what we've done. Number one, we took an oscillator that appears in our NinjaTrader indicator list, and we've weaponized it. We brought it onto the chart. We've discovered that it gives good turns, but live in the market, it's hard to see those turns because it's a panel 2 indicator. It's down below the price action. We added the oscillator alert indicator to the chart, And then we've defined what bar type we're referencing and what indicator we want to reference in terms of establishing reversals in the momentum tool that we've chosen. Then we've told the computer, hey, these are the values that I want you to use as a maximum and minimum threshold to cross. And when we do that, we get these signals in the direction of those turns. So scrolling backwards here, you'll see over the course of time that for the majority of the time, the trend signals tend to be the higher probability entries. So this can be really important when you're watching the market to look for those signals that are in the direction of the trend. And so this morning in CL, after the London Open, we had a signal here in the direction of the trend, and now we're starting to see some of those signals here, but the trend is more or less flat this afternoon. Let's go ahead and try this on a different time frame. Say, for example, you wanted to do it on a 1 minute chart. Well, we would go to our bar type here and change it from 5 to a 1. And now we get an alert from the indicator that says, whoa, 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 whoa there, Speed Racer. We suggest you change that base value from a 5 to a 1. So open up your indicator list, go to the Oscillator Alert tool, and your base data value change from a 5 to a 1. Go ahead, hit OK. And now all of a sudden, you'll see that things have changed. There's more signals to deal with. So this is a 1 minute chart now with the Oscillator Alert indicator on there. And again, remember how I said earlier, you want to try to, whenever possible, especially if you're a new trader, look for signals in the direction of the overall trend. Keep your stops relatively tight and let your targets run to 2 and 3 or more values of your risk. One of the things you may want to try that you've got the tool set up are different bar types. Many people choose a tick bar or a range bar, even a Renko bar, to eliminate some of the lag and the whippiness that come into play when we have wicks from time candles. So, for example, if we wanted to change this to a 5 range chart, we could come into the chart under data series and change it to a 5 range chart. Well, once that happens, we're going to need to tell the Oscillator Alert tool what we've done. And again, we have the warning telling us you did something, you need to move it. So we'll come back into the indicator, Oscillator Alert. Now we change our base data type from a minute to a range, and the base data value from a 1 to a 5. Just go ahead and hit OK. And now you'll notice something very interesting happens when the bars come back. Notice how the punctuation of the signals differs. Without the whippiness of the minute bars and all the wickiness that's involved with the minute bar, you'll see that the price action is crisper. The crisper price action allows you to do some things that you couldn't do with a minute bar necessarily. Number one, you can come in here now, and when you see a signal, you can actually either reference the previous swing high or the swing high of the signal candle itself and put your stops just above either of those levels, because when the signal works, the market goes in the direction right away. For example, over here at 938, when that 5 range candle closed, you could have looked at the low of the candle and put your stop 1 tick underneath it to look for a target or a reversal in the signal above. This keeps your stops relatively tight just before a trend reversal, so we have larger winners when the market moves in our direction, smaller losers when the signals go against us, and then again finally here in this example, stop just above the candle, moving down, larger moves into the winners of those candles. So it's a real great tool for taking an oscillator indicator, and there's many of them in your free NinjaTrader indicator list, and I'd encourage you to explore and experiment in the market that you're trading. Get that indicator up on the chart, define your overbought and oversold values, get the arrows up on the screen, and then experiment with some different bar types to see which one the market you trade reacts to best. If you have any questions, feel free to ping me over at michael@backtothefuturetrading.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Today I'm going to save the template under the date, which is July 26th, 2016. So look for a template in our Dropbox that has the date as well as the title, Oscillator Alert CL5 Range. If you want to get a hold of those 2 free indicators as well as the template, it's real simple. You just need to go to our website, backtothefuturetrading.com/unplugged with 2 G's. You scroll down, you'll see a place to put your name and email. When you get those to us, we're going to shoot you a link to the Unplugged Dropbox. It has all the indicators, all of the templates that we've done over time. If you're bored and you're motivated and you want to see the kinds of cool things we do when we're not producing unplugged videos, go ahead and feel free to take part in our live demonstration where you can watch videos to learn how banks, the moves they make in the markets you trade, are forecastable days out into the future. Just something to poke around at if there's nothing good on Hulu or Netflix tonight. Thanks for your time. Appreciate everything you guys do with these free tools that we make available to the community. And remember, if you're just starting out trading, no need to spend thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars on new indicators. You've got a really great toolkit in your NinjaTrader indicator list. Sometimes you just need a little extra push from a secondary tool like the Oscillator Alert indicator to pull the best of that information out and make it actionable. Thanks again. Have a great trading session, and I'll talk to you soon.